So I just started practicing and I suddenly had a string break on me. It flew in my face. But I wanted to show how to change a string. So first things first, I figured out which string broke. So mine right here is 3rd octave B that is now gone. And the way that I did that is this chart, and I'll attach a PDF, but you figure out what note it is, and then you figure out what octave it's in, and then according to that you can figure out if it's gut, or up here we have nylon strings, and then down here we have, well, up here we have nylon strings, it's backwards. But I'll attach a PDF of this so you can see it. And then this also shows you how to tie the knot, which is a very simple knot once you get a hang of it. And there's a couple tricks, so I'll teach you the couple tricks. So I got up my string bag, and I actually don't have this string. I have a full set, but because this one breaks so often, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the next string down. So this would be 3rd octave B, but I don't have a 3rd octave B today, and I need to keep practicing, so I'm going to use a 3rd octave A, which is right next to it, which is fine. You can go one up or one down, of course, depending on the color, and that's fine. It's okay. But that just means I have to get 2 strings now. I have to get a 3rd octave A and a 3rd octave B when I go to order them. So I pull my string out. A lot of these strings come with enough string in it for 2. This one I've already replaced, so I only have enough for 1. So first things first, we're going to tie the knot. The knot, I always do it in 2 steps. So first, okay, let's see if we can get it. Okay, so first you do a bunny ear with the thing towards you. You want to make sure you have a good end on the bunny ear, okay? Then you do another bunny ear. So you've got 2 bunny ears, both facing towards you. Then you're going to loop the one bunny ear around the string into the first one, and then tie the knot. And the way that I bring it, you tighten the first bunny ear. And it doesn't have to be really tight. Like that right there is pretty good. I'll tighten it just a little bit more. And the way I tighten it is by pulling on this end and pushing the knot up. Now the trick that I always love, and you'll always need some string ends right here. You can get these when you order strings. You can ask for them. Just say please include string ends. And again, you can order harps, or sorry, you can order strings from harp.com or vanderbiltmusic.com. So the way that I like to do this is a trick I got from Samuel Pratt, is that you're going to put this string end, let's see if I can show you, in through the knot. And you see how this knot kind of has like a spring to it? If you put it in right underneath that spring, so it goes underneath it, it kind of acts as a spring, and it'll hold that string in. It'll hold it in, so as you're putting you're looping it through the harp, you don't have a lot of problems. Okay, so now I've got my knot all set with the string in, and do you see how it's not so tight? Don't worry about it. It'll tighten when you put it into the harp. So open end in, find it. If you need a light to be able to find the hole, go for it. This one's in a weird place. And then, oh, look at that. I'm gonna loop it through. And pull it out the other end. Make sure the string end doesn't come out as you're looping it through. See, that looks good. All right. Then I'm going to take your tuning key, and this part, let's see if I can get it up closer. I always have questions about this part, so let's see if I can do it well. So you're going to turn the tuning key so the hole is going up and down. So your hole in your peg is vertical, okay? So then when you insert the string, it's going to go straight up. Alright, you see that? So now we're going to pull all the way through. Make sure there's really not a lot of slack. You want a little bit of slack, but really you don't need like octaves of slack. A lot of people say you need octaves of slack, but what I'm going to teach you is actually a way that you can do it without a lot of slack. So don't worry if it doesn't line up exactly where it needs to be right here on the peg yet. It's going to come through and it'll tighten right there. Okay, so once you have it like this, then you're going to turn it so the bottom is now facing up. See that? So now I've got my bottom facing up, and I can put it into the peg. And then this is the trick of all tricks. Then you take your long end and you're gonna loop it through from the harp out. It's really hard to do this without getting my fingers in the way. Did you see that? I'm looping it from the back of the harp in. So as I'm looping it over, it's gonna come around and come underneath the string that's already been tied. So now, as that loops around even more, I'm going to keep looping it. Make sure it goes towards the harp. As it loops around, it now tightens over the string. And then you just tighten it until I always match the string below it. Now, you see how it's going to go out of tune? It's already out of tune. So, one trick I've been taught is to take your thumb and your index finger and just kind of push on the string like that. And that loosens it a little bit, gets it used to it. I've heard of people like rubbing on the string like that, but that just creates tension and friction and it pulls the string too much. So this just creates minimal amount of stretching, and you want a little bit of stretching when it's new, because it'll take about a week for it to really start to set. And you don't have to tune it every minute. Now, if you have higher strings, there's a way you can do the knot that is more tight. So you do, let me show the knot again. You do your knot, you do your first bunny loop. This is a broken string. I'm going to use it to show you. So you do the first bunny string, then the second bunny ear, then loop it around inside, get rid of the first bunny knot, pull your string end in. Again, find that spring area. Let's see if I can put it. And loop it underneath that end piece. You're going to put it underneath that end piece, and then it'll just stay. I love that. Okay, so this is one of the higher strings. So they're smaller, and this knot sometimes isn't enough to hold it in. So what we do is we create a second knot, a second loop. Wait, it goes that way. Yeah. So a second bunny ear, and it goes over the first bunny ear, and then we tighten it. And that's what it looks like. So that has now two knots on top of the first knot. So that goes into the harp. And that makes these higher couple octaves a little bit easier to get in, and then it'll also keep it there longer. Now, the last thing is the lower wires. If you break a wire, you actually get a string that doesn't even have an end. So this is a low C, the lowest string on a harp. And you see how one end of it has nothing, and then the other one has this is the knot. This is the knot, and you just leave all that on the string, and then you loop it through the hole, and that is underneath the harp and holds the harp in. The top, you don't need to do the loop through because it's wire, and it'll bend and it'll just stay in place. And this is when you do the wire strings, you really only have got one shot. So make sure you've got enough slack, or just the right amount of slack. You don't want too much slack, but enough slack that you can wind it around 2 or 3 times. Every one of these pegs, you want to see if you can get enough slack that it winds around 2 or 3 times. And that is the optimal way to wind a string on the harp. There's lots of ways to do it. I've showed you one of the ways to loop it around the peg, but that's essentially how I tune a string. Let me know what questions you have, or change a string. I can't do videos, I'm not very good, but that's okay. I hope that helps. I'll leave a link to this PDF so that you can figure out what strings, or if you go to harp.com, they have a whole tutorial that walks you through what string you need. There are a couple kinds of strings, couple brands of strings. There's Bow brand, which is the best, highest quality of string, and then right below it is Burgundy, and Burgundy are just as good, but they maybe had a couple more pieces of fat, like it wasn't as clear. And so I always use just Burgundy because they're just as good as Bow brand, but it's fine. There's also Vanderbilt strings, which are just as good. Again, the highest quality is probably Bow brand, but Vanderbilt music strings are good. You're going to start running into some other synthetic strings. Just make sure that you're always getting pedal, gut for these middle strings, and then nylon for up here. That's generally, it's whatever your harp is strung for, that's what you want to replace it as. So, I'm sure there's a million questions, but that's the basics. So happy harp string replacing. It takes a couple practices. If it's not perfect the first time, don't worry. It's gonna hold, and when it breaks again, you replace it again, and you'll learn. So